Now, let's look at what you'd better do. Here we will see a list of my recommendations. Omit all explanatory info and background. This is not the place where you can discuss explanatory info. You can save it for the discussion section, for the next section. Because you have to talk about what you did, you yourself did. No more than that. Provide the readers with enough details so that they can understand and replicate your research. You have to tell the readers in detail what happened behind the locked doors, step by step, so that the readers can go the same steps and replicate your research. Okay? To figure out whether you are right or wrong, whether your data is correct or not. Explain how you study the problem, identify the procedures you followed, and order these chronologically. We have to actually emphasize that chronology is important. Order is important. We talked about actually adverbs, some phrases which show the chronological order. We have to explain new methodology in detail. Otherwise, we have to name the method and cite the source. We talked about it. And we use some expressions. We have another lecture on that, and you can go and see that. Use figures and tables. For example, you want to show the distribution of sample. As I said, in some cases you have some participants, for example, and you want to show demographic info. For example, how many of them are bachelors, how many of them are master's graduate, and how many of them are PhD graduates. In such a case, or in similar cases, you can use tables, because tables make it easier to elaborate on specifically the participants, the instruments, something like this. And in some cases you can use flowcharts specifically with regard to procedures. If you have a difficult procedure to understand, then you can use flowcharts so that the readers can understand it better. Okay? We have some other recommendations here. Present in logical order, and your subsequent results should follow that same order. This means that if you are talking about the first question, we have some questions, for example, 3 questions in this research. Then we have to talk about how I answered the first question. What did I do with regard to the first question? The method or the steps I took to answer the first question. This can be the logical order. I first talk about the procedure I went through to answer the first question, then the second question, then the third question. And then in the subsequent section, the results section, the discussion section, I have to take the same order as my map. Okay? I have to stick to the same order. First, the answers, the data related to the first question, then the data, tables and figures related to the second question, then the third question, and then if there is any, the fourth and the rest. We have to write some sections, specifically procedure section, like a recipe. Okay, we have to use some chronological order, using some adverbs, now, then, after that, before, prior to, and words like this can help me order my procedure. Describe study design or analysis type and period of study, the time of study. As you know, give details of sample, number of participants, number of sample, recruiting methods, sampling procedure, demographic info, how I organize them, how I group them, and a lot more thing related to my sample. Include the frequency of observations. If I have given 2 treatments, for example, or I have observed twice, thrice, 4 times, I have to talk about them. And the type of data recorded in each observation should be clarified. Here we have to describe inclusion and exclusion criteria. We have to keep it simple, but this doesn't mean that we can actually we can skip something. We can say something and not tell the readers we cannot tell a little bit of the story and keep it keep the rest for the other sections. Okay, I have to tell as much as possible so that the readers can replicate the research, so that the readers can redo it. Okay, literature references should focus on method, as I discussed before. If you used a famous technique, famous method, a previously published method, you should cite that source here, as you see here it is written. We have to be precise in describing measurements, and we have to include errors of measurement and some other limits. We have to define key variables, if any, and we have to use the names consistently. We cannot change the names. For example, we cannot tell once variable A, for example, in the second time call the same variable the first variable. We cannot use 2 different names for one specific variable. We cannot use synonyms here because they are considered something like a proper noun. My name is Ahmad, my last name is Sharifzadeh. Then I cannot give the meaning of my name. I cannot give the synonyms of my name because that's my name. That cannot be changed. Okay, and something like this will happen or will be the case in your research. You should spell out acronyms at first, at first occurrence, and use consistently throughout your paper the same acronyms all over your paper, all over your thesis, dissertation, and proposal. And if you use a specialized test and terms, you have to use identical name in text, figures, and tables all over your text. If you use something which is special, which is proper noun, something like a proper noun, something like a trademark, something like a name for a test, a questionnaire, and an instrument, a method, technique, a theory, that doesn't change. That doesn't change whether you use it in a text, in a figure, or table.